Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is great to see all of you again. The last time we were all together was last month, where our community meeting focused on mental health. We were joined by the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, along with the Philadelphia Police Department, where we talked about some crisis resources that were available to city residents, as well as some of the mental health training and crisis training that police officers have received. If you missed it, as always, our recordings are available on social media, and we also send them out to our email list. So that's a good reason to join our email list so you can get some of our recordings if you happen to miss events like this evening. But now that that is out of the way, happy Pride Month to all. Yes, yes. Now, I am about to say something that has never been said before in this setting, and that is, welcome to the first Citizens Police Oversight Commission Town Hall. That's right, everyone. We have transitioned officially. So join me in saying happy birthday, CPOC. Yes, finally, finally. So with that being said, I am just going to introduce some of the staff that is on the call, and I'm just going to do it in order of who I see. So first, Danny. Everyone knows Danny. Next, Julian, how are you?
Hello.
All right, I see Josh. Okay, Josh is here. I am Talia Grimmage, and of course, our executive director, Anthony Arachi, is on the call as well. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, everybody.
Also, I would like to introduce one of our CPOC commissioners who's joined us this evening. Rosara, how are you?
I am blessed. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to see you.
Good to see you also.
And so just to do a little bit of housekeeping, because people are always curious about the number of complaints that we received. For the month of May, we received 11 complaints, and year to date, we've had 53. So that just gives you a little bit of details about some of the things that we've been working on. But enough about that. We have all assembled here for a very important occasion. And so at this point, I am going to turn things over to Julian to do some of our introductions and get the ball rolling for this evening. Julian, take it away, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Talia. I'm actually going to turn it over to Danny to introduce our icebreaker. And then after the icebreaker is introduced, I'm going to start to go down the list and introduce our amazing panelists for this evening.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So I'll start off the icebreaker. Our icebreaker for everyone is, what is your favorite piece of queer media? So like your favorite book, movie, TV show, like an album, song by a queer artist, or even an art medium. And if everyone can also say their pronouns. So I'm Danny. I use he, him, they, them, and she, her pronouns. And I would say, I'm tempted to say that the new Fire Island movie that was just released on Friday is my new favorite piece of queer media. If anybody has seen it, highly recommend. But before that, I think I'll probably have to give, there's an artist, a recording artist named Greg Dillon. If anybody has heard of him, he produces a lot of really great music, and I really like him. And my fiance and I are considering using one of his songs for our first dance at our wedding in a year. So he's definitely somebody else to check out.
Thank you, Danny. I'm going to jump in really quick because I have to. I am in love with the show Legendary on HBO. I cannot get enough of it. Absolutely love it. And one of our interns, Madison, is also on the show. I've recently got her to also fall in love with it too. So I just had to throw that in there. So I'll start with our first guest. Please introduce yourself, Officer Mason.
Okay, I didn't expect that I would be first. My name is Joe Mason. I use they, them pronouns. And queer media, I'm about to age myself, so please, everyone, forgive me. But I got to give you two pieces, and it's George Michael's Freedom 90, still like the greatest banger of all time. I'm sorry. And the movie Jeffrey, because the first time Michael T. Weiss comes out in the cowboy outfit, I fell madly in love with that movie. So those are my pieces of queer media, and I'm old, obviously.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Officer Preston.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicole Preston, obviously police officer, for almost 16 years now. I'll have 16 years in August. Pronouns she, her, and I really don't have any queer like media or anything. That's just I just
No favorite like
That's it.
movie or book where you see like representation that you really have always liked?
I can't even remember the name of the TV show I used to watch on Showtime all the time. I used to watch Queer as Folk all the time.
That's a great one. Did you see that they're doing a remake?
I did not. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
So, but besides that, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Next, we have Officer Burns.
Hey guys, my name is David Burns. My pronouns are he, him. So my favorite movie would be Love, Simon. And over the last couple of years, I became a big fan of RuPaul. So those are my my two shows or movies and shows.
Good choices. Sergeant Tease.
Everyone, Sergeant Nick Tees, he, him pronouns. I'm going to have to go with Pose. I think it taught us a lot. It definitely taught me a lot as a gay white male. So I was excited to watch Pose, and I wish it was still around.
Yeah.
Next, we have Officer Morel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Officer Rashid Morel, go by he, him pronouns. Most of my favorites have already been taken, but definitely Pose, which I've probably seen every episode at least 2 to 3 times. RuPaul, I love RuPaul. As far as music, I would probably say Todrick Hall is somebody who I really can identify with and love all his music, media, everything. So,
Thank you for sharing. Next, we have Officer Shergai. Excuse me if I pronounce that wrong.
Hi, Officer Charguy, he, him pronouns. I'm not really a big media person, but honestly, a TV series that I watched a few episodes of when I first came out was The Fosters. It was on Netflix. It represented a lot of different aspects of a lot of different situations, and I kind of appreciated how it touched on a little bit of everything in there. But that's pretty much it.
You know, and I'm going to check that out. Thank you. Next, we have Officer Farlow.
Hello, everyone. I'm Officer Farlow, assigned to the 22nd District, detailed to background and recruitment. I specialize in community engagement, 4.5 years on the job at Philly PD. My favorite movie is The Wood. I like The Wood because it shows different levels of growth from family to friends and career. I got a various artists as far as music. I love music. My favorite, I would say Drake and Big Sean.
Nice. And Danny, if you could help me out with our last guest.
Well, we also have Lieutenant Ryan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Ryan. He, him pronouns. As far as media, LGBT TV is something I like to watch. I watch that constantly. There's a lot of movies, news, different things. So I'm a big supporter of watching that channel because I don't think we get good representation in mainstream media. And that's the only way I could sort of find some small movies or short stories for our community. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And then I think our final guest to welcome is Eric Lawson.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me here. Eric Larson, he, him pronouns. I'm the Deputy Director of LGBT Affairs for the City of Philadelphia in the Mayor's Office. And this is a great icebreaker, so thanks for the question. I will say something that I've recently finished and really have loved is the book Here for It by Eric Thomas. It's just really good read. It's a like quick read because they're all individual essays, so it's like easy to pick up and put down at different times, but it's like just a really, really great collection of stories and personal insights. So definitely check it out if you haven't yet.
He's a local artist and writer.
Right. Love it. Thank you.
Now we were actually going to throw it back over to you, Eric, if you wanted to talk a little bit about your office for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So first of all, I'll just say thank you again for having me here. It's great to be all. I know that LGBT Affairs has wanted to work with you all for a while, and I'm glad that we're able to do so in this capacity. Just want to share out for everyone on the call. I'm not sure how many folks are already familiar with our office or what we do, but our office is really tasked with both serving as the sort of LGBTQ representation within the mayor's office and municipal government, but also to liaise between the community and this administration. So we are here to help make life better in pretty much any aspect of life living in the city for queer people. So you know, we do support, you know, the passage of inclusive policies and work internally. We also help, you know, liaise between community members who are in need in one way or another and help get them connected to culturally competent services across the city, both within the municipal government and also, you know, social services across the city as well. And then something else that, you know, I would say is relevant to this audience and this call is that, you know, we're here as a resource for maybe community members who, for whatever reason, feel potentially uncomfortable going directly to law enforcement. So we're there to kind of help liaise with you all as a resource to getting connected to the supports that they need. So, I mean, we wear many hats, do lots of stuff across the city, but I just think especially, you know, during Pride season, there obviously is, you know, a historical connection between our LGBTQ communities and law enforcement. And I would be remiss to say that, you know, that it's always been an easy and loving family. I also think a lot of times conversations around interactions between law enforcement and LGBTQ people don't include the intersection of those folks, you know, so having LGBT officers included in that conversation as well is really important. So I'm just really appreciative for the opportunity to be here at the event tonight to sort of, you know, raise the profile of our office, help engage in these important conversations with you all, and just make everyone here aware that, you know, we exist and we're here to help too. So thank you again, Danny, and everyone. Really appreciate this event and this. So thank you.
Danny and Julian, real quick before we move on, I just wanted to acknowledge we have another commissioner, Mary Ellis is with us, as well as, excuse me, Afroza is with us this evening. They're two of our CPOC commissioners. And also, I also just wanted to shout out Madison. Nice to see you, Madison. She's our summer intern. It's good to see you on the call too.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, for that presentation. We appreciate you being here. So I think we're ready to sort of kick off our panel discussion. If anyone from the community has questions that they're interested in asking, you can always throw them in the chat, and hopefully we'll have some time for them near the end. But so I will get started, and our first question goes to Officer Mason. How important is it to have queer representation in law enforcement?
So I'm unmuted, right? Okay.
Yep.
So I mean, it goes to this icebreaker. So when we start and we talk about like, what's your media? What do you see? It's where we see ourselves represented. And I think probably everyone on this panel can talk about the first time they saw themselves represented on television or in public, or the first time I saw someone who looked like me or sounded like me. And it's really important that law enforcement is reflective of the communities that we serve. There's nothing better than when a little kid looks at you in uniform and sees a reflection of themselves, where I can remember the first time I pulled over a trans identified person and immediately from recognition could tell looking at the ID that obviously the ID it was a trans man, and looking at their ID, it was all still very feminine presenting. I simply said, what are your pronouns? What's your name? Is your ID correct? And I got a call later from somebody in the community who said, this person said, like, never have I thought being pulled over would be like an enlightening, lovely experience. I also didn't write tickets. I'm not a big ticket writer. You can ask Sergeant Tease. I was never one for tickets, but it's also important for law enforcement to have us represented in the community. It's one thing for the community to see themselves represented in law enforcement, but it's very important to know that we have a seat at the table, because it changes the language. And when they're writing policy, when they're sitting down and they're talking about, okay, we need a trans directive, how are we going to interact with the trans community? To have me at the table changes the voice from them to us. We're writing this policy on how we're going to deal with that, has now become, hey, Joe, let's write this policy on how you want to be dealt with, how we are going to be dealt. And once you change that language, it really helps move things forward. At least that's my opinion. And I can talk for hours. Everyone here will tell you. I'll stop right there.
Awesome.
Thank you. So the next question we have will be for Officer Preston. And our question is, what has been the biggest positive change in terms of queer representation that you've noticed from when you were younger to today?
So what I noticed from since I was younger, probably representation, maybe like, I guess, like teachers, athletes, like movies, like you said, the books, like you could see, like Joe said, more people that look like us. Like,
It froze for a second.
am I still frozen?
Now we can hear you again, sorry.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I was saying, as like Joe said, like being able to see people who look like us. When I was growing up, I didn't see people who look like me on TV, or like you said, law enforcement, teachers, athletes, people that I looked up to and or role models that anybody else could look up to. So I think that's like one of the biggest changes that I've seen since I've grown up. More representation just out in the public and acceptance as well.
Awesome. So our next question is for Officer Burns. How do you think that the department could do a better job at recruiting more LGBTQ officers?
So I think it's important. Obviously, visibility matters. Attending maybe more LGBTQ events. I think that's important. I mean, being in recruitment now for the police department, obviously, we deal with budget issues, but so I would say maybe more so advertising, and just being more visible in the LGBT communities, and then just better two-way communication with the police and LGBT members of our community.
Our next question will be for Sergeant Tease. And our question is, what do you think the police department can do better to support their LGBTQ plus partners or officers, excuse me?
Yeah, thank you, Julian. Before I answer that, Danny, is it okay that I also piggyback on Officer Burns?
Please.
If that's okay.
So anyone else, all of our panelists, if you have other things you want to follow up or piggyback on, feel free to, please.
I appreciate it. I want to thank Dave for his response, because he's right. And, it's hard when we want to be present. We want to recruit LGBTQ members of the community to our department and make our department bigger and better. But we also have to do that when community allows us. And just this weekend, we weren't allowed to be a part of the festivities and recruit. So when you have community members objecting us, it makes it harder for us to break those barriers. So having these conversations help, but also having people that are also willing to see and recognize that we need to recruit from within our community, it helps to be able to do that while we're there. So how do I think the department could help with LGBTQ officers, and I guess in the community. So I think it's multiple facet. I think it's policies and procedures. I recognize it's going to take time. The language that we use in our department's old. We still use he, him pronouns. We're training people to use other pronouns and how it's used. But all of our language and our policies and procedures is just he and him. So I think changing policies and procedures is the first step. And I recognize it's going to take some time. So training, procedures, I think all that needs to be changed. They could help.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Officer Moran. Sorry, I'm playing. I think, oh, there he is. Sorry. Officer Morel, our question for you is, what is your favorite queer destination, be it a local watering hole or a vacation spot?
So for me, it would be San Diego, California. I love it over there. I've been there quite a few times. I've actually loved it ever since I was a kid. I've seen Real World San Diego on MTV. That was like the first time I was introduced to San Diego. And then first time I've actually visited was actually with Nick and my partner Dave. I think it was my 26th birthday or 25th birthday. I just love it over there. I love the weather. The people, we know how we are in the Northeast. We could be a little tough to let strangers in. Where when you go out there, everyone is just a little more welcoming. I love how all the gay clubs and everything are both indoors and outdoors, which I just love warm weather. And similar to Philadelphia, how can I put this? It's not out of the ordinary for pretty much the whole city is gay, if that makes sense. Like I don't feel like I have to be at a certain area to feel comfortable. It's like the whole city just embraces it. Nobody really bats an eye. And yeah, I just love it.
Thank you for that. The next question we have is for Officer Shargai. What was your coming out story?
So my coming out story, back in 2016, I was going back and forth in my head a lot. I knew what I needed to do, but I was debating it with a lot of questions, because talking to members of the LGBT community, like, I knew what the risks were and do the pros outweigh the cons? Is it worth coming out as a transgender male? I weighed back and forth for years, going back and forth. Will I lose family friends over it? Will I be a victim of a crime? How's my religion going to factor into all this? Do I want to risk being killed just for living my life as who I am? And those are hard pills to swallow. It's like, what do you do? Do you live your life and be comfortable as who you are? Or do you lie to yourself and walk day to day in this earth and not be comfortable? So I ended up writing a 6-page letter to a friend that I was living with. And I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought it was going to go well, but I wasn't sure. So when she started reading that letter I wrote to her, I just left. I went for a drive. She continued calling me. I was afraid to answer the phone. To this day, I'm a firm believer that ice cream makes everything better, especially if you add sprinkles. It was a good experience coming out, and I'm glad I did, because who are you if you're yourself? Who are you if you're not living in your truth? Yes, I did lose family and friends over it, but in reality, the people that stayed in my life, they're the ones that matter the most. And I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Thank you for sharing your story. That's so meaningful and important, especially back to our conversation about representation. So we really appreciate it. Our next question is for Officer Barlow. Do you have a story or maybe even an anecdote where you were able to open up someone's perspective due to your experience as an LGBTQ officer?
Yeah, so I had a radio call that kind of like changed the office another one of my friends' perspectives on transgender. Um, I responded to the Carlisle's Hotel in the 22nd Police District a few years back, maybe 3 or 4 years back. Yeah. Time flies. But nobody would go to the call because they see that it was a male with the wig on fighting another, fighting the manager of the hotel, and they wanted the male escorted out. And when I responded, one of the only 2 officers who responded to the location. When I responded, the officer who was there with me was not very comfortable with approaching the male, the transgender. So her pronouns were she, her, and hers. And what I did was I just simply asked her name. How you doing? My name is Kiana Farlow. What is your name? And this is before the pronouns had came about on the police department. So it wasn't no she, her, hers. I just simply asked the person their name, and they gave me their name, and I addressed them as Shaquita. That's who she told me her name was. And that kind of changed the officer's perspective, who I was with, and was like, well, I'm glad you came. I would have never thought of a way to address this situation and the person by their name. And it diffused the whole situation. I think that's actually what happened at the hotel. The owner, the manager of the hotel didn't want to address the person as her pronouns, who she wanted to be, she, her, her, Shaquita, and made fun of her. And I got there and changed the whole narrative and was able to give her a ride to the train station. And she was really cooperative. It was an easy call just because of my perspective and being able to change the other person's perspective.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. No problem.
So the last of the first round questions that we have is going to be for Lieutenant Ryan. And the question is, what do you think CPOC, us, can do to help the LGBTQ community and officers understand one another better?
I think something like this kind of forum, doing that more often, I think is really important. I think showcasing all the wonderful work the Philadelphia Police Department has done in the last 10 years with our policy on how to interact with transgender individuals, what the Gay Officers International League does, and really sit down with community to explain why we do things. But also I think in your role is sort of advocating that we're really doing good things. And sometimes we don't get that message out there. And I'll be the first to say the city, as well as the police department, we don't do a really good job of selling all the great work we do every single day. And a lot of times people don't know that. If they don't hear about it, they assume it's not happening. And I can tell you from being part of this community for 15 years and I've been on this job, a lot of talk behind the scenes of how we make things better. But I also challenge every one of us that every single time we meet a group of people, we explain who we are, but also, more important to the people who are in charge, what are they doing for the LGBT community? How many people do you have in positions of power that are LGBTQ? Because we don't have those conversations from the majority of people. If they're not part of our community, they don't really care. And it doesn't mean that they don't support us, but that's not on the forefront of what they're looking to accomplish. So for me, I want to know how many gay, LGBT people are in the city in positions of power. How about in the police department, in the fire department? We've sometimes stepped aside and felt that diversity was only race and gender. Diversity is a whole other subject versus on like if you can speak 2 languages. Our Asian community, especially in law enforcement, is underrepresented. Latinos. So it's just not one group of people. So I just challenge everyone, even the group here, CPAC, to just really, we need to partner better with you, tell you all the good work we're doing, so you can help us spread that word, because the narrative is like people don't like the police, etc. I don't find that to be the case. I've been in a long time. I've lived in the center city. I deal with a lot of people. We can't just let the narrative always be that way, because things won't get better. And for those who don't want to make things better, they're always going to somehow find a way to hold us back. And we just can't allow that to happen. So I think that's something that, one of the things I think would help the community and also the LGBT officers who are under great stress every day. And, maybe a lot of people don't know this, LGBT officers and suicide go hand in hand. So that's something else we always have to be mindful of. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those points. And I think I can speak for all of us at CPOC. We're definitely interested in working together to, solve a lot of the problems that we both see across the city. So thank you.
So our next question is back to Officer Mason. As we all sort of know, and it's been mentioned already on this meeting, the queer liberation movement is largely correlated to a riot against police at Stonewall. Can you talk about what you think could be done from both sides to sort of better create more understanding?
Sure, absolutely. Right before I do, I'm going to say, Rashid, really, real world was when you were a kid. Now I feel old. And Benson, you're a Philadelphia police officer. They're Jimmys, not sprinkles. Just keep that in mind. We're Philly people. This is what we do. Okay, so Stonewall. So it's going to sound like I'm getting off topic. In 2015, we had the first formation meeting for Greater Philadelphia Goal. The organization itself started in New York City in 1982, but here in Philadelphia, we started in 2015. In 2016, we formally became an organization, and I swore in as the first president. So that was January of 2016. And that May, we were told by at the time, it was Philly Pride Presents, that we would be grand marshals at that year's Pride Parade. Obviously, I was ecstatic. I'd been going to Pride Parades since I was a teenager. Now here I was an adult, a police officer with years on the job, and this was an honor. And then a letter circulated, a petition that came out, and the gentleman who wrote it, what I heard was there was a petition that was against us being honored at the Pride Parade. So when I read the petition, I mean, obviously, initially I was upset, I was hurt, I wanted to be honored, but nothing that Andy said in the letter was wrong. And basically what Andy said was there are organizations that have been doing this work for 20 years and 25 years and 30 years. And I think he mentioned Colors by name. He said Colors has never been honored by the Pride Parade. And here you guys are 5 months in the organization. You've done nothing outward for the community. And yet you're getting this recognition. It doesn't seem fair. And the hardest part in the world is to admit when somebody else is right and you're wrong. But we had to admit that, yeah, Andy was absolutely right. We hadn't earned the right to be up on that float yet. So we declined. And when we declined, one of the critiques that I kept hearing was, well, you better decline. Stonewall was a riot against police. I grew up, I knew what Stonewall was. I'm almost 50 years old myself. So I'm 46. I know I look good for 46. But knowing what Stonewall was, it was, well, how can I be a police officer? And yet at the same point, I didn't come on until I was 26. I attended parades and yelled and screamed and chanted and marched. So how do I figured out? And I figured the easiest way was to reach out to the Stonewall veterans. And that's what I did. And when we sat down and we talked, and I said, like, does it bother you to see police at Pride? And does it bother you to see uniforms marching in New York past Stonewall? And I said, no, that was never what we were fighting against. They said, look, the laws were unjust. And lawmakers wrote unjust laws, and society supported those unjust laws. And the police were always the face and the hand of that injustice. But it wasn't the police we were fighting against. It was the injustices against our community that we needed to change. Sure, it was the way we were policed, but it was also the laws that were written and the way society told us we had to be treated. And they said, there is nothing that makes us prouder than seeing us out and openly represented in police departments, because we were always there. And in fire departments and in city government. And we just want to be equal and we want it to be equitable. And that's all we've ever asked for. So I've always kind of kept that in mind, that those who were there, those who were throwing bricks, they got it. They weren't throwing bricks to say we hate the police. They were saying we hate being policed the way you're policing us. And obviously, at the end of the day, I take a uniform off and I'm always going to be a queer person. And I get to say that with my community, what we get to recognize, it's much like building a house, right? So you buy an older house and you're getting ready to restore it. You have to figure out what's broken and what can't be saved, and you have to get rid of it. But you have to look at what's good and what's working and what you can build around. And I feel like we here in Gold very much recognize the history of the way we were policed as a community, as well as the work that's being done in the police department and the way we can move forward. And I kind of hope that we're the good part that we can be built around. I'll never say that the police bear no responsibility for what happened at Stonewall. There was a reason that it was pennies and bricks hitting cops and not politicians and other people. So it was cops who were the enforcement end of that. But now that we're moving on, let's all move on together. Let's make those changes. And it goes back to representation. Let's make this department represent the communities that it serves in the way they need to be served, the way we need to be served. Hopefully that answers the question. I know it feel like it went a lot of places. And also, Benson, Jimmy's. We're in Philadelphia, they're Jimmy's. So.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Next question for Officer Preston. What can the queer community do to better mend their relationships with the police department?
I feel like, I guess the queer community, they got to get to know like police, like how we work, how our policies work, how things work. I mean, it's not just the queer community that don't like, I'm not even gonna say the queer community don't like the police. It's just certain people who don't like law enforcement. They have a certain perspective about how police work that I guess the community don't like. I mean, it's not just them, the African American community as well. Certain people just don't like how things work. I mean, I figure you sit down at a table, you try to discuss things with people that has that whole just sit in the place of power or whatever. So you can sit down and you can talk to us or even the head of Gold. You can talk to Nick, you can talk to Joe, people that run certain communities out here. It's just hard to get people to change their mind about how it feels. But the first step you got to do is just sit down and discuss it. You know, you got to try to get your points across, or sit down and put your points on the table, try to figure out how we can come together and figure out how we can work together to make it better between both groups, I guess, police and the queer community. In any figure, you can sit down and start. It's the start.
And a quick follow-up question to that. Do you have, in your experience, have you found it easier or harder maybe to connect with people better when you're in uniform versus when you're out of uniform?
As far as people within the queer community or people within the African American community? I
Just
mean,
in general, I'm curious.
it depends on the person. I mean, some people love us. Some people walk up to us and they thank us every day, or thank me every day if you talk about me. Thank me for doing the job that I do every day. And then there's other people who look like me, who would look at me and they drop all kinds of F-bombs and call me all kinds of Uncle Sams and everything else. It just depends on the person. So it depends on the situation. It depends on where I'm going, if it's what kind of festival it may be. I mean, yesterday I got a whole bunch of smiles yesterday working Pride with Nick, but tomorrow I could work something else and everybody can hate us just because of, it just depends on the situation and where you are and who you come into contact with.
Thank you.
If I can just follow up with the last question, Julian, I think we as in goal members have a hard time connecting with the community, either in uniform or out of uniform. It's just because of us being law enforcement. And even though we represent firefighters, EMS, military, they hear goal and they assume it's only law enforcement. Even when we explain the law enforcement is a component of it, there's resistance right away. We've reached out to many organizations here in Philadelphia. We represent Greater Philadelphia, but we've reached out to many in Philadelphia that are in need of financial support or other support, and we're willing to do that. We're willing to volunteer our time, and a lot just because we're officers. They won't even let us step a foot in their door to have conversation. And so it's very frustrating, at the same time, heartbreaking to know that we're trying to help, but you don't want us just because of our profession. But our community who needs us, we're available for them, but nobody wants us to be around. And it's a major struggle that we still have today.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for sharing that. Our next question is for, sorry, Officer Burns, I just unmuted you and then there we go. what are some ways that the LGBTQ plus allies can show their support and lend their voice, in your opinion?
So we've heard this many times during this panel, but visibility and representation matters. Allies can support us not only when they're with their LGBTQ friends and family, but 24/7. They can speak up when they see any type of mistreatment with LGBTQ plus members. They can help educate some of their straight counterparts. Whenever they see any type of mistreatment or misgendering someone, they can correct them. Obviously, doing it when they're not just around LGBT individuals. And then I think even allies in power can advocate for members of the LGBTQ plus community. A serious change. I think a lot of that matters. Just being supportive. I think that's the number one thing. As a gay male myself, like it took probably quite a few years for me to come out. And it was because I wasn't sure who I could trust, even in the straight community. And once I was able to get that little by little, I was able to come out. And obviously now I'm fully out, but I think that matters.
Yeah, feeling like you can feel trust around the people in your life to be authentically yourself is always such a, I think, struggle for all queer people. And allies just showing that they will be there and support you no matter what is such an important thing, I think, for people to see and understand, especially for younger people. Thank you for that.
So for our next question, I'm going to recycle a question for Sergeant Tees just because I'm curious. What is your favorite queer destination, be it local watering hole or vacation spot?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go Rehoboth, local. My husband and I my first time going to Rehoboth was with my husband at the time. We were dating, and we love going down in the wintertime when it's peaceful and quiet. As much as I hate the cold like Rashid does and would rather go somewhere warm like Florida or Mexico, he insists that's where we go. So I bundle up as we walk on the boardwalk and have the ocean air hitting us at freezing temperatures, but I enjoy it because it gives us quality time together, reconnect. We usually get away from our phones, and we don't have that feel of everyone with their shirts off in the summertime and having to feel that you have to be body image wise. So we enjoy Rehoboth. I have to go to Rehoboth. It has something special to my heart. So hopefully one day I'll have money to afford a place down there, but the way things are going, I don't think so, but maybe we'll see. I'll dream of it anyway.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Officer Morel. What was the first piece of queer representation where you saw yourself and fully identified with?
I actually thought about this question prior, and to be honest, I don't really remember any representation of me definitely growing up. I mean, when I was growing up, I grew up in West Philly. In my family, there wasn't being gay or anything like that, just wasn't brought up. In church, it wasn't. In the neighborhood. And when it was brought up, it was people, or if I seen it growing up, it was usually not, this is nothing negative, but usually more of like maybe more flamboyant men, like especially at church or in the neighborhood in high school, flamboyant, more feminine men. And I never really seen someone who I thought fully identified with me as far as race, things we like, just in general. I think it was until I finally started being my true self and I was older, I came out, is when I started meeting more people that I'm like, man, we're just alike. We like the same things. I even know some other Black gay men in law enforcement, which if you would have told me years ago that was before I was a cop that exists, I would have thought you were lying. So it definitely, I would say later in life, I'm 34 now, so definitely in my 30s when I finally started seeing, I would say, representation, I think fully resembled me.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing. I feel like there's been such a recent bombardment in media where we're finally seeing a lot more representation for queer characters and queer people, which is really exciting and awesome. But I think for us, a lot of us who are older, like when we were younger, there just wasn't really very much out there. And so it's hard to truly identify. So I completely understand like not seeing yourself until you really came out. much later.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, now that I think about it, maybe the first time I've seen like on TV a black gay male was on Living Color when they had like men on film. Like that was all I seen on TV. If it was black gay male on TV, so definitely didn't see it growing up as well like I see it today. So
yeah, it's definitely an interesting, I think, thing. This, like, I don't know about anyone else, but I feel sort of this like jealousy in some ways. I mean, I'm happy and so grateful for all this stuff that's out, like watching, I don't know if anyone's seen Heartstopper, which is a new series on Netflix. It's really cute, it's really sweet, but it's definitely one of those things that I feel some level of jealousy, just that like this didn't exist when I was a kid, and how wonderful it is for these young youth to be able to just see an adorable queer story. Sergeant Tease, you want to chime in?
I think I'm watching Heartstopper because of your post on Facebook, by the way. So I think I read your long post and I was like, oh, this is maybe interesting, so I'm going to watch it. So thank you.
Don't give him the credit. I told you about that 2 weeks ago. You just didn't listen.
Well, he had a good story behind it, so I listened.
Regardless, a great show. Definitely recommend all.
Thank you. Next question is for Officer Chergai. What was your inspiration for choosing a career in law enforcement?
I grew up with a long history in my family of first responders, but the only thing is they were firefighters, not cops. There was multiple generations being firefighters. I did do that a little bit back in 2014 as a volunteer, and that made me the 5th generation of my family. But growing up, I was always at the firehouse, and everyone would have thought I would have been a firefighter. Everybody. And then what I wanted to be, my answer was always the same. I wanted to be a cop. Don't know why. It's just, I always looked up to the cops in my town. I thought they were a positive influence. And then later, coming out as transgender, I didn't think that was necessarily possible. Because you really don't see it much. You don't see transgender cops. You don't see police departments hiring people that are transgender. And it's not really heard of. And I didn't want to not follow through with what I wanted to do in life, because I knew that's what I wanted to be. And I applied, and it's an opportunity to help be a part of change. And if you can help be a part of change, why not?
And I'll be the first to say thank you for being a role model, because I know for a fact when I was younger, one of the things that I always wanted to be was a politician. And until President Obama, I didn't think that that was possible. And that was the first time, other than watching my grandmother pass away, that I saw my father cry. And I knew that that was a big moment. And so I can tell that, there are a lot of other people out there that you can positively impact like that. And so I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you doing what you do.
Thank you. And if you can be that influence for someone, why not? Because I didn't know I was the first person to get hired as a recruit for Philadelphia police, and that's openly out as transgender. And then when I found out, I'm like, oh my gosh. So why not continue to be that change? And if you have the ability to do it.
Officer Mason, you wanted to circle back to that other question we were talking about.
Yeah, sorry, I feel bad piggybacking that because how intense Benson's answer is. But now you were talking about like representation when we were younger. Rashid was saying it. I can remember being almost 50 years old. I latched onto anything, and I can remember watching Ellen DeGeneres' comedy show when she had her half-an-hour sitcom. And there was that season that they toyed the entire season about whether or not she was going to come out. And I can still remember where I was and how I was sitting when she talks about in the one opening where they asked her, she said, I had a really weird dream last night. I don't know what it means. I dreamt I was Lebanese. And it's such a terrible throwaway line, but it has stuck with me for 30 years because it spoke to me. I can remember the first time I saw an interview with Io Tillett Wright and seeing that somebody could be non-binary. And it was like, wait, that makes sense to me. I thought I was the only person who felt that way. And finally, there's representation. Sandra Bernhardt, the first time she publicly said that she dated men and women, and it's just who she was. And I latched on to anybody who seemed to have any hint of representation of who I was, immediately became like a role model of something that I needed to be a part of. And I think that's why it's so important for people like Benson. When Benson came out in the department, it means so much because I know for a fact that there are people who look at Benson and say like, wow, there's me represented. Now I have a role model. That means a lot.
I think it's so important. Just, I mean, it's all connected, the way that we sort of see representation and how it affects us, and then being able to be that representation moving forward to hopefully allow people to feel like they can go for those things and have those dreams. What were you going to say, Sergeant T? As I saw.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that Benson's also helping us. He just attended his first class, and he's going to be helping us instruct the recruits moving forward with all the police recruits that come in. So he's taken on a big task, but it's going to be an awesome responsibility, and we're looking forward to it. So his representation is going to really help us in the classroom too, teaching the recruits before they hit the street.
That's awesome. Congrats. That's wonderful. I think our next question is for Officer Farlow. Imagine that you have the biggest and unlimited budget with full staff capacity and could create any new unit within the police department. What would you create?
It's pretty easy. I will, excuse me, sinuses, but I will create a LGBTQ unit. To be for the representation. It's the 21st century, let's be honest. There's a few departments like New York, DC, who already has units for the LGBT community. So that'd be, like if we had the manpower to do that in the budget, I would definitely go with that. I see the benefits of it is that representation, not feeling like, not just judging us as a cultural identity as being police officers, but being more a part of the community, because then we could host events. You know, we can have a place for them to come, like a house for our LGBT community to feel included. Just like when we do community relations, and, you know, it's a big deal. But even though it is a component of community relations, it would just be its own home. I think everything as far as a cultural identity, I think it deserves a home.
Thank you. And our last question for Lieutenant Ryan, I'm also going to recycle a question because I'm curious. What are some ways that allies can show their support and lend their voice?
I think really, for me personally, I think sometimes, you know, we assume people are a certain way because they're gay or straight. And once you get to know them, realize they're just people. And I think sometimes we're too fixated on you're a gay male, you're a straight woman, whatever it is. I think really once you begin to spend time with people, and that's with all people, you find you have a lot more in common. And you're also at the same time, you're able to then teach each other about different issues that surface. I can only speak to myself as a gay man. Gay issues and gay men issues are very different than women's issues or other issues. So when I meet with people who are straight, I explain to them there's different needs and wants and things that need to happen for me in order to be successful than it was for a straight person. We open up conversations where, you know, and I'm not saying that if you've been straight all your life, chances are you're not really thinking a lot about LGBT issues. And you might be someone who's going to champion them or help us. But until you live that experience, it's sometimes harder to sort of convince people that, you know, for gay men, we need different healthcare. Even in the police department, when we want to see gay doctors. And recently I said that I don't want to see a straight person when it comes to, and they couldn't believe it. Well, why not? Because gay men have different needs and wants. And there is what we call medical homophobia. And a lot of times people don't know that. So having those conversations and just get to know them personally, we learn so much more about each other. And it then will help in return of having better understanding of each other. And then when we call upon allies or people, they can help advocate for things that we need. And I think even in the police department, we have a lot of great allies because now we have people that have had kids that are LGBTQ. There's officers that are coming out. There's so much more in common. And we're able to sort of broaden the conversation that, no offense, but if it's always been about straight people, now we're finally waking our way in to say, wait a second, you've had your time, now it's our time. And just one other thing about representation, think about it, in Philadelphia, we have no top gay people in positions of power: mayor, police commissioner, DA, etc. So I can't wait for the day that we have a gay police chief, like gay mayor. That's when I'll see representation for all of us, because I think that's more important to me. So I think that's just to piggyback on that question a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, that's great. The thing you brought up about healthcare, I think is so important. I anecdotally, like, I remember coming back from college, and I was still seeing my pediatrician from childhood, just because like that's all I had. And I wanted to get tested because I just knew as a gay male that like that was something that I should do, just to know my status and know things. And I remember just the complete stigma and the way that my doctor made me feel about asking to get tested, and just the shame that he sort of brought on about it. And now having been, I go to the Mazzoni Center, and having a queer doctor it's so much different. It's so important. It's amazing just the difference that makes, I think, in all aspects of life. That sort of transitions in a great way, sort of what you were already talking about. We had a question in the chat, and this is for all the panelists, whoever wants to respond, sort of talking more about the representation, and reflecting on your own coming out stories. What do you think, what advice would you give to parents and families to make space and make their kids feel safe, to have an easier coming out experience and to be themselves? I'll jump to you, Sergeant Tees.
I think, honestly, to ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions and be honest where you're coming from. I think we as a society have grown into this cancel culture, and we're afraid to ask questions or to understand each other. So I think as a parent, just to ask questions, reach out to those that they may know, or other, they may have friends, they have friends of friends that they know somebody that is. Reach out and ask them questions. I think that would really help. To get it started, at least for them, to get to understand the community a little bit better. I mean, research online also is a great resource too. So I mean, there's a lot of things available, but for me, it's really about asking questions and being honest where your questions are coming from, because I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, that's important. Anybody else want to chime in? I got you, Officer Mason. Oop. Hold on, you're muted. There we go.
Okay, we're good. I know I'm a parent. I have children. I know Nick has children. And I remember when you first find out you're going to be a parent, and everyone says to you, like, what do you want? Do you want a boy or a girl? What are you hoping for? And you always say the same thing. So I just want healthy. I just want a good, healthy child. And somewhere along the line that gets lost with a lot of parents, where all of a sudden they start building expectations for what their child should be. And I try and tell my kids all the time, my 14-year-old, whenever we're going through something, I say, look, I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're an artist. I don't care what you come home, who you tell me you love, what you're going to do. I want two things for you in life: be happy and be healthy. And if I can work towards that, then we're getting it done. And I think if a lot of parents realize, take all the other stigmas out, take everything else. And if your child came home and told you that they got hurt, you would work to fix it. If your child came home and told you that they weren't happy, you would work to find out why and make them happy. And just strive for a happy, healthy child, and everything else kind of falls into place.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Anybody else want to chime in? Officer.
I would just say, make sure you love them. Things are going to turn out to be okay. I think, things are so much better now for LGBT people to come out. It's not 50 years ago. So things will turn out for the best. I think that my parents were very good about it, but I think for a lot of families, they just think it's going to be a dead end and they're going to have a horrible life. And I couldn't change anything about my life now. Because I love being gay. I think it's a great thing. And I think with everyone here, the representation, I think that people don't have to be so scared. And I think that if your family's not going to support you, there's plenty of people out there that will support you, and you will eventually make it, even if you don't have that support. And we've all gone through struggles. And I think if not, we just need to let people know where they can reach out and get support and help, because I don't like to hear that LGBT people are thrown out of their house because they're gay, and they're homeless because someone has an issue with it. So that's all.
Officer Farlow, you want to chime in?
Yes, just to piggyback off everyone else, I would basically say, like my mom used to always tell me that I didn't come with a book, that I had to teach her about me when I was dealing with behaviors in response to not being able to be who I wanted to be and come out. So I would say if you have a kid, you got to allow them to teach you and unfold those papers, those pages of that book, because we don't come with books. You know, we just come out, you know, from our mother, but we don't come with a book. So, but you have to allow your kid to unravel and turn through those pages and let them be vulnerable enough to do that and support them while they're doing that. And that's it.
I like that metaphor. We don't come with a book. That's a really great, I think, message. Officer Benson, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I would like to chime in on that. I think, honestly, just being supportive, ask what the kid wants or needs. That's a big factor. Because it takes a lot for the child, if they are questioning or coming out, to get to that point and make that decision. And all at the end of the day they want is just to be supported. They don't want to be disowned, or like Sergeant or Lieutenant Ryan said, like they don't want to get kicked out of their house. They just want to be supported, be loved. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing you can do.
Thank you all for that. We have another question from the chat. From your perspective, do you think things have gotten better for officers now than it was in the past in terms of the department and their experience with LGBTQ officers? Anyone want to jump in first?
I'll go first. I think it's gotten a lot better. I think when you hear the stories back in the day, from the Lavender Law, where they used to, if you were a gay employee, they would round you up, and if they found you were gay, they would fire you. Now we have people who are moving up in the ranks of the police department. So I think everyone knows a gay person now. It's not like, you know, it's hidden, but when you hear the officers from a long time ago, they had to be closeted. They couldn't say anything. And that was just society though too. It's not indicative just of policing. It was society, and it still is, from certain groups and certain religions, regardless of race or gender, whatever, they have certain stigmas. But I think from all our perspectives here, I can just speak for myself. There's so many more people that are out. Maybe they're not showing up here, but they're no longer living in the shadows thinking that they can't be a police officer, or they're afraid to say something to some officers for fear of repercussions. So I think we've made great progress. There's a lot more, but you know, we're out everywhere. And I think that things are only going to get better. And hopefully in 50 years, we don't have to have the same conversation about LGBTQ. And, you know, it's, you know, and for straight people, they never have to come out. So, you know, it's, they just walk down the street, they're straight, you know, so that's hopefully it won't be that big of a stigma when you still have to tell people, because for gay people, we have to tell you every single time we meet you. And that's something people don't know. You know, if I meet you, I don't have to tell you every time, but sometimes people assume on the job, oh, you have a wife or a partner, or, you know, well, no, I'm gay. Oh, okay. So they're okay with it, but they're like, oh, okay. I don't have to think about that, but all right. So
yeah, and I feel like it's also, we're always making an active decision of like, do we trust you? Do we want to share this piece of our life with you? Do we feel comfortable in this current situation we're in? It's such a, I think, an important thing. I think you're right that just as a society, we've clearly moved past. I mean, back to the conversation about representation, just what we're seeing now in media and representation is so important. And while I think you were the one who brought up, we haven't had a openly out mayor or police commissioner or DA, we are starting to see things like that in other cities and around the country, and more of it happens with our politicians and other leaders and other types of professions as well. I think that's really important. Do we have any other questions, or did anybody else want to respond to that question? Sorry. I'll unmute you. Oop, Sergeant Tease, you wanted to add something, I think.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, I think it was also Farlow, she was talking about if she had a large amount of money, what would she do? And I think it would be pretty awesome if we had a police athletic center that, while you can't specifically say it's only for LGBTQ kids, but it being known as a safe center for LGBTQ kids. I think that'd be pretty cool to connect with the officer at a center like that.
That would be really awesome. I think that again goes back to the conversation around representation and getting to meet people that have those role models in our lives. Well, I will kick it back, I think, to Talia or Anthony.
I have one quick question.
Actually, hold on, let me throw. Actually, Officer Mason wanted to jump in.
Okay, I think it kind of falls on both the question Rob just answered and Kiana's question before that. So obviously, I feel like the police department's gotten a lot better. I've got 20 years on now, and it's a different department than what I joined. But I could never deny the fact that police departments, just by their nature, are usually traditionally conservative and kind of slower moving behind society. So where society catches up, the police department has to come behind that. And that's basically what we do in goal, and what we need more of is training. We get the opportunity to train every recruit that comes through the academy, but we've only been doing that for 5 years now. And there's police officers with 20 and 25 and 30 years on who have never had any sort of LGBT training. And if I was given an unlimited budget, I don't know that we need any new units. I don't know that we need any new, but let's take what we have now. Let's take training. Let's get every cop and have them take some college courses and take good training, really invest in CIT and all of those other things that cops do. We get 3 weeks at the range for recruits. We get 4 hours of LGBTQ competency. Let's keep that going through the department. And as you go on, the longest tenured cop in Philadelphia has got 50 years on. Tommy Devine, I think he came on in 70, so he's 51 years now. He's awesome, and he gets it. But there's still plenty of cops with 20 and 25 and 30 years on who've never once been through any sort of LGBTQ competency.
Julian, you had another question.
Yeah, I was just thinking about yesterday. I had the pleasure of working the table at the Pride event with some of my colleagues. Madison, who's in here, I believe, was there, as well as 2 of our commissioners, Afroza and Rosa. And it was a pleasure meeting with them and, sitting and talking with them. But I noticed at the event, I would see a lot of like younger kids in groups, and you could tell they were just so happy to be there and so, free to kind of be themselves. And some of them you could kind of tell, like, they may not have, coming from the suburbs that they're from, they may not have the opportunity to express themselves, excuse me, in that way in their everyday lives. And so I'm curious to any of the panelists that would like to chime in, kind of if you could give some advice to younger people that may be struggling to, understand who they are, or maybe not sure if they have the support of their friends or family or their community. What advice would you give them in their young age?
That's a good question.
I would say find somebody who you could trust, who you could open up to and be who you want to be, who's going to fill you up with confidence. Because it only takes that one person to give you that, to water that seed so that you can blossom into that beautiful flower. You just need that one person to believe in you, you could trust and open up to them. Because for me, it was my mother. My mother is my best friend. My mother basically loved me unconditionally and was like, why didn't you just tell me? And if I didn't think, I went through like being put in special ed because of my behavior. Something was wrong with me because I was angry to them. My mom was telling the school district, nothing's wrong with her. She's just dealing with something emotionally, but we're trying to figure out what that is. So, it was tough. High school was tough for me because I was put in special ed, left away from my friends and all the friends that I had in high school. I was secluded to one room. So, just having that one person you could unload on, like I said, that person was my mother, and she allowed me to be who I want and love me unconditionally. Once I left the house after that, I wasn't looking for anybody else to love me. I wasn't looking for anybody else to fill me up because I was already filled up when I left the house. Thank God, but everybody doesn't have that story, but whoever that looks like to you, that could be your dad, that could be your brother, my friend's story is a little bit different. That could be your cousin, your sister, whoever that looks like. You just need that one person to take that chance on you and You gotta bet on yourself first, but you need the other person there and that support and give you that love.
Thank you for that. Did anybody else want to chime in? Officer.
I think actually it's funny with this question because I had a coworker of mine come to me last week and say, she wanted to talk to me in private. And she said, I think my daughter told me that she thinks she, is a lesbian. And she's like, what do I do? What do I tell her? And then she's one of those people I know is going to be accepting, loving mother. But I think for any parent, especially as her only child, hearing that as much as she loves her, and she knows she's going to accept it was a big thing for her. And she just asked me a few things. And I said, first is to make sure that she knows you love her, that you love her. That's most important. Also tell her that she doesn't have to figure it out today, tomorrow. It's a marathon, not a sprint. She doesn't need to identify herself at such a young age. If she's still figuring it out, let her still figure it out. Just know that you love her and support her, along her journey. I didn't fully accept who I was until I was well into adulthood. I would tell somebody who's maybe 12, 13, or even younger who think they may be gay, bi, whatever, any label that they think they are, that they shouldn't feel as though they have to rush to do it. Just, it's going to work out as long as you, just take your time and be true to yourself, and it's going to work itself out. That's what I would probably tell someone younger.
Thank you for that. Shirley, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question. Officer Morrell, that's a sort of a nice segue into something that I was going to ask. And this is just to anyone on the panel. If you could go back to when you were younger, knowing what you know now, what's one thing that you would say to your younger self?
This is like the ultimate RuPaul question for anyone who's ever watched Drag Race.
Sorry, I think we're both trying to unmute me at the same time. There we go. I don't know. I think for me, I always say I was a late bloomer. Like I tell Nick and a lot of people say, "Oh, I knew I was gay when I was such a young age." Where me, I just didn't know. Like I just always felt like I had to. Like I said, I can remember saying, "Okay, I think I may be gay," but like the only gay people I seen were more flamboyant and they didn't like the things I like. And I'm like, so that's not me, but that part is me. So I felt like I had to fit into a certain mold. Whereas I got older, I realized I don't have to fit into any mold except who I am. And so that was, for me, that was a big thing. It's just, accept yourself and just know you don't have to fit any mold. You are meant to be you. That was something I had to accept. Realize I don't have to fit any stereotype or any what I'm supposed to be or what I think I'm supposed to be. Just be me and it'll work itself out.
Yeah, I have to agree, and it is a RuPaul question. For me, I was very flamboyant when I was a younger kid, and I wish I was able to tell myself and had the courage to tell myself to just be me and be proud of who you are, because I'm a good person inside, and I knew that. So I really wish I was able to do that when I was younger, and I didn't.
I would just say for me is, I think everyone struggles with not caring what people think. I think when you're younger, you're so fixated on what someone's going to think or say about you. When you look back, realize that no one really cared. And if they did, time has passed. And, so it's part of life. They sort of give you the test first and the lesson later, but not caring what people thought. I think that was something that probably would have come out sooner. Be worried about what someone else was going to think or say. Yeah. In retrospect, that was silly because they didn't really care either. I'm sure they weren't really concerned about Rob Ryan. So even though I thought they were.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. So
I think Officer Morrell raised his hand again.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to get it back off.
Oh, okay.
I know for me, well, now that I'm thinking about it, a big thing that I struggled with was trying to figure out a perfect time to come out, as they say, which I don't know why I dwelled on it so much when I was younger. If I could go back and tell myself, stop worrying about giving yourself a label, just figure it, it'll be fine. That was a big thing for me. I'm I literally used to prepare how I'm going to come out and how I'm going to tell certain people. And things like that. And looking back now, I'm like, if you would just stop focusing on how you come out and just come out, it probably would have been a lot easier for you.
Mm.
So that was a struggle, something I dealt with.
Rusty, you said you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, and yes, I do. I can tell that I'm older than everyone here. And I am so proud of each and every one of you. I'm a bit emotional because I look at your wonderful faces and I'm so proud that you're here sharing your story and also that you're police officers. You make me so proud to be an American, a Boricua, a Taino Indian, and I'm so proud of each and every one of you. And I hope that one day if I'm ever in trouble, that I can call on you for help. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. I'm praying to the Great Spirit that He continues to bless each and every one of you through your journey, because I think you're all awesome officers and awesome human beings. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Rosa. Officer Mason, you wanted to chime in?
I was going to say, if I had any advice to my younger self, it's probably the same advice I'd give to myself now, which is, I've put off aspects of transitioning just to make everyone else comfortable.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, when I lay down, it's my head that hits the pillow, and I can't worry about what everybody else thinks. I always describe myself as, people say they're unapologetically trans, and I'm apologetically trans. Like, I'm as trans as you want me to be in your space, but I'll back off if you have it. And then the other thing, it's very much, I don't know if you've ever seen Ash Beckham gives a TED talk. And the one thing she says is, if you know something is certain, don't give other people hope. So if you know that you're gay, or if you know that you're queer, you know that you're trans, don't say like, I think I might be, because you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, because you're just giving them a door to keep open for hope that you already know is closed. So if you're going to do it, like, hard is hard, just take that bandage off and tell them who you are, and it works out better in the end.
Mm.
So.
Officer Preston, I had you next.
I was just going to kind of piggyback on like what Rashid said. Like, me growing up, it wasn't difficult for me. When I came out to my mom, I did what Benson did when he wrote a letter to his friend. I wrote like a 2-page letter to my mom because I went down, I sat on the bed, and the words just could not come out of my mouth at all. So I had to go back to my room and write my letter. I was like, all right, Mom, here you go. I got this letter for you. And when I came back, she was like, girl, please, I already knew that. Everybody knew that. Like, everybody knew that. There ain't nothing, so who cares? Like, it is what it is. And from that day on, it's crazy. She did. And my setup, it was crazy. So it was just like, it wasn't a shock to nobody when I said it. But I don't even know why I was scared, but I was 15 and I mean, everybody was accepting. Like, I thank God for the family that I had because nobody cared, nobody gave out. Only person who worried about it was myself. And then, like, when I got on this job, like, I was kind of hiding it when I first got on the job. When I came through the academy, we didn't have the whole LGBTQ course or the class when they go up and they speak to the officers. They didn't do that. When I came through 16 years ago, which probably do make other officers or, incoming recruits feel more comfortable within themselves, within the job, when they see representation, like, we're here to help you if you have questions or whatever. I didn't have that. So when I first came on the job, I kind of hit it, but then after a year or so, it was just like, oh, well, who cares? I don't care. I am who I am. It is what it is. And then the show was the L Word. I don't know how I could not remember the L Word, but when that show came out on Showtime, I think that was like the biggest thing. That's all I had.
Awesome. Officer Burns.
So I guess as far as my coming out story, well, growing up, I guess I had a lot of insecurities, and that probably led for me not to come out. So I think if I could tell my younger self, it would be to stop caring what other people think. So I guess my two coming out stories, one with on the job in the police department, I never truly came out myself. What happened was I came out to a family member who pretty much outed me to the family. So I never really had that opportunity. And then coming out on the police department, it was the same thing. I kind of outed myself to a coworker who pretty much outed me to the department. Both of them were positive experiences, but I think it just kind of made me realize that I wish I could take that back and come out myself and stop caring so much about what other people think.
Eric, do you want to join in the RuPaul Love session?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say, I don't know if I have like a grand coming out story to share, but maybe to answer a previous question, which was, how to support other people when they feel safe and like coming out to you. I think that something that I always remind people is like, you should let people who are coming out to you lead that, follow their comfort level, follow like what they're willing to share with you, and kind of like defer to them. And I understand, that there is a hesitance or maybe a fear in like asking questions, but I will say, I think people can tell when you're asking questions in good faith. I think people can tell when you're asking questions, maybe you misgender someone or use a wrong pronoun or use a outdated term or something like that. I think people can tell when you're doing something like that in good faith and you're not, trying to be discriminatory or harmful to them. So in that sense, I think if you're having a conversation with someone and they feel comfortable enough to come out to you, because it is an ongoing process. I mean, we think of it as being like a one-time moment when you came out, but we're doing it all the time. You get a new job, you're coming out to people in that new job. You get a new coworker, you're coming out to that new coworker. Like it happens throughout our lives all the time. So I just think that letting people drive their own experience is really like the most important thing in that process. So that's kind of my 2 cents on all of this, but I do appreciate the RuPaul question. It's good.
I'll throw another thing just to answer in that question as well. I think there are little things that we can do. A specific example for making, I think, trans and non-binary people feel more welcome is little stuff like when you're introducing yourself using your pronouns, as well as putting them in the signature of either your social media or your email signature. Little things like that can be so meaningful, because even if you are someone who is cis, meaning that you identify as the gender you were assigned at birth, that really is sort of an opening to a person who is trans or non-binary to be able to share their pronouns and share that with you. They know that you have your pronouns in your bio or in your email signature. It means sort of a welcoming of like, this is safe. You should feel safe to share them with me. Since that as a society, we're not really at a place where everyone just sort of automatically shares their pronouns. Officer Preston, you had something else you wanted to add? Oop. I think you're not on. There you go. Now you're unmuted.
No, I didn't have it. I don't know why it's still saying my hand is raised. I don't know how to turn that off.
No worries. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I'll kick it over to Talia.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a great panel. I'm hoping this is the first of many, and I just really enjoyed the discussion that we had this evening. It was great to just hear from everyone, get everyone's perspective. I know I learned a lot, and I just want to welcome you to more CPOC events that we'll be having in the future. And this was really, really great. So thank you. I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you for participating and joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great evening. And for everyone, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Pride season. Have a great night.
Good night.